technological progress, the condition is as in the yellow box, and it means more loans should be given to the industry with higher marginal productivity and lower degree of decreasing return to scale. In case of an economy with technological progress, optimal condition is as in the yellow box, and it implies that higher loan concentration ratio to the industry with a higher technological progress may be optimal from the dynamic viewpoint. Now I'd like to show Korean banks' loan concentration ratios. As you can see, in case of KDB, most of HCI's ratios are bigger than 1. And the right industry's ratios are mostly smaller than 1. This means KDB supplied more capital to HCI. But other banks and Korean banks overall revealed the opposite patterns. One can intuitively think that resource allocation concentrated to the industries with higher profitability, higher growth rate, or improving international competitiveness may be desirable. Korean industries' profitability and growth rates are shown in this table. This is showing that HCI's profitability and growth rates were higher than those of the right industries. Concerned with international competitiveness, I used the indicator of comparative advantage. Its abbreviation is ICA. As the left box indicates, HCI had a comparative disadvantage, and the right industry had a comparative advantage. But the gap between the two has continuously narrowed. So HCI's changes in ICA were positive, while those of the right industry were negative. That is, HCI's competitiveness has improved, while that of the right industry has worsened. The correlation coefficients between KDB's loan concentration ratio and the three performance measures were positive, as in this table. This means KDB allocated more capital to the sectors of which profitability, growth rate, and improvement in comparative advantage were high. But Korean banks other than KDB revealed the opposite pattern. This means that those banks allocated more capital to the declining industries. This table can be interpreted as an evidence for KDB's role in improving resource allocation efficiency. However, I tried to examine the effect of KDB's and other Korean banks' loans on industrial profitability and growth by panel regression. First, the panel regression equation is used to examine effects on profitability. Profit is a dependent variable, and KDB-L and DBank-L are key independent variables. KDB-L is KDB's loan concentration ratio, and the DBank-L is other Korean banks' loan concentration ratio. R&D, advertise, and HHI are included as control variables. In order to catch the effect of R&D, advertisement activity, and the degree of market concentration. Second equation is related to effects on industrial growth. Dependent variable growth is annual growth rate of value added produced by an industry. KDBL, DBankL, and the R&D variables are the same as in the first equation. Scale is a control variable to capture the effect of economy of scale. Main results from the regression imply KDB's loan were likely to have a significant positive effect on industrial profitability and growth with more than 10 years lag. On the contrary, other Korean banks' loan did not have any significant effects. These evidences indicate a leading role of a financial sector in economic development process may be possible, although it is restricted to public bank or development finance. These empirical results motivated further examination, that is, empirical studies on why Korean banks other than KDB allocated more capital to the industries with a relatively poor performance, and what factors influenced KDB's intersectoral capital allocation. These issues were examined by panel regressions. In regression equation 3, dependent variable KDBL is KDB's loan concentration ratio. Also, independent variables are as follows. Score is industry level pseudo credit score and a proxy of a credit review. Internal is included to capture the effect of each industry's dependency on internal or external finance, and it is calculated as the share of internal financing in the source of facility investment. Direct is related to direct financing. Dummy variable heavy's value in the 1970s is 1 if the industry belongs to HCI, and if not, 0. Regression equation 4 is used for other Korean banks. Export is a proxy of export loans which were provided in the scheme of repassing loan from the Central Bank of Korea. On the contrary, it is not included in equation 3 regarding KDB because KDB did not deal in such kind of export loan. In equation 4, KDBL is included as an independent variable in order to test whether KDB's loan induced or crowded out other banks' loan. Main results from the empirical studies are as follows. In case of KDB, credit review had a positive and a significant influence on the bank's capital allocation. And the KDB supplied more capital to the industries with higher dependency on external finance. In case of other banks, directed credit programs for export promotion affected those banks' intersectoral credit allocation, and the credit review did not function well. And those banks' loans were not crowded out, but induced by KDB's loans. Now I'd like to tell some implications from my study introduced today. First, public banks may be able to contribute to industrial and economic development, as some empirical studies, including mine, suggest. Also, the leading role of a development bank is crucial. Commercial banks are not good at providing long-term finance because they are unwilling to bear the risk associated with the financing of new enterprises, and they lack the specialized skill required to deal with higher risk long-term investment. Second, credit review is important. Korean banks' experience suggests that a well-designed and well-functioning credit review system can contribute enhancement of resource allocation efficiency. Third, institutions are important. And there are two aspects in credit program for the promotion of export. Amsden, the author of Asia's Next Giant, said in Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, the state has exercised discipline over subsidy recipients. In exchange for subsidies, the state has imposed performance standards on private firms, and he thought such a discipline played a crucial role in Korea's successful industrialization. Export loans in Korea's developing era may be seen as a subsidy given by the export performance. In this respect, it may be thought to be a good credit program. But my empirical studies imply that in a developing country where primary industry or labor-intensive light industries have a static comparative advantage, export loans contingent on export performance could result in the resource allocation in favor of those industries. And there are opposite to upgrading industrial structure or pursuing dynamic comparative advantage.